Our guest today is the Chief Judge of the Circuit Court of Cook County. He oversees the circuit's approximately 420 judges, whom he assigns throughout the court's 10 divisions and 6 geographic districts. Our guest today has brought sweeping reforms to the court that are both innovative and compassionate. As an example, he has expanded the use of specialty treatment courts dedicated to mental health treatment. Our guest today earned his undergraduate degree at the University of Illinois and his law degree at John Marshall. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Tim Evans. Judge.
Thank you very much, Jay, for that very kind and generous introduction. I certainly am happy to be here with you and with all of the members of the Great City Club of Chicago. We recognize the work that this organization does for not only the city of Chicago, the county, and this state, but you stay involved and you make available to us an opportunity to share our thoughts. So let's have another great hand for the City Club. And of course, Paul Green, a few moments ago, didn't tell me that today was his birthday. What he told me was that he had a photograph of me and Mayor Harold Washington, and he said he recognized Mayor Harold Washington, but he wasn't sure who the other guy was. So he had me sign the, just to verify. Thank you, Paul, for all you do for this city and this community. Some of you may not know this, but Paul's dad was a member of the 4th Ward back when I was alderman, and I will never, even before, that's true, that's true. But I'll never forget how kind and generous he was. A few moments ago, some of the stars in this community were being introduced, and properly so. But the modesty that is quite obvious for the Circuit Court of Cook County prevented them from standing up and taking a bow. I just want you to know that all of the presiding judges, all 16 of them, are here, and they're to my right. I'd like them just to stand and be recognized out there all around. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate their support, and you'll be hearing a little bit more about what they do in a few moments. I am very, very grateful for them. We also have other judges who are here. They're not necessarily presiding judges in terms of that title, but they do a great job, and I just like those judges to stand as well and receive a great round of applause. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I see my school is here, and John Marshall is well represented. Thank you very, very much. You can give John Marshall a great round of applause, too. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on the 6th of October, 1961, Robert F. Kennedy had been Attorney General for about 9 months or so. And he had traveled to Oregon to attend an event similar to this. He was going to be speaking at the City Club of Portland. And I get the impression that he had a lot on his mind as he got ready to deliver his remarks. I know, for example, that back in Washington, D.C., several of the hottest unresolved issues of the 20th century were sitting on his desk. And he knew very well that sooner or later, if it was on his desk, it would be on the desk of the Oval Office very soon. And one of those issues dealt with the Jim Crow laws of the segregated South. And those laws were discriminating against citizens in this country. And a lot had been said about it, but not very much had been done about it. And now that it was on his desk, things finally would have to be done. So as Robert Kennedy stepped up to the podium out in Portland that evening, he said that his theme, his topic for that evening was going to be the rule of law as the foundation of our democracy. And here's what he said on that occasion. He said that we all must play a role. We cannot yield to temptation to let someone else perform the job, nor can we remain aloof from what, in a free society, is everybody's responsibility. He said further, no citizen can escape from freedom and still enjoy it. As for me, he said, I welcome the challenge and the opportunity, and I pledge my best effort towards these issues. And properly so. Of course, Robert Kennedy was right. The rule of law is the foundation of our democracy, and what we have to do is to make certain that the law is always an instrument of justice as we utilize the laws of this country. And as a member of the court, I've gone a step further. I've actually defined the rule of law as I see it. It's the quest of justice, guided by the time-tested legal principles based on fairness. And some of those principles include equality, impartiality, due process, accountability, and transparency. All of those qualities are very, very important to us in the legal community, so much so that we never settle for anything else. In fact, in our court, the rule of law lives inside each one of us. And we never take that bench without realizing how important that rule typically is. Now, you've heard Jay mention some of the things about our court, and I think probably most people know about these things. Yeah, we have more than 400 judges and 16 divisions and districts, and more than 1 million cases are filed in our court system every year. We have about 2,500 employees who help us. That's generally well known. In addition to that, we, as judges, are in charge of the court when we are presiding, and we supervise the clerks that are there, and the deputy sheriffs that are there, and the interpreters that are there, and the court reporters, and the probation officers, and of course the litigants and the lawyers who are there with us. And most people know all about that aspect of our responsibilities. They may know also that we are the largest court system in the state of Illinois. And depending upon which debate you listen to, that is whether you listen in Chicago or whether you listen in LA, we are the largest unified court system in the world. And we're very proud of the work that we do. And talking about it that way might give somebody the impression that it's all about us, but it never is all about us. We invite the world to bring their disputes to our door. We ask them to resolve these disputes in court rather than in the street. Some of these matters are very momentous. They're very important, and we recognize that as they bring these matters to us. Others are less important. Some might say they are mundane, but not to the people who bring those matters to us. Sometimes these matters are life and death. Sometimes they are disputes between neighbors, but always those matters are the most important things for the people who've taken the time to come to court. No one of us ever forgets that. And so the story is never just about us. It's about the others who come to seek help from us. And so I hope people will know more about us as we continue to work in this county and in this country. One of the things they may not know about us, though, is that we treat everyone the same. And that is true whether they come with a lawyer or whether they come representing themselves. They are treated the same. They're treated as if they are the best lawyered clients in town. Now, I know some of you are looking at me and you're wondering if I remember, is the city of Chicago the city of the big shoulders? Yeah, I remember that. And I also remember that the city of Chicago is the city well known for its political atmosphere. Maybe you've noticed a few things on radio, television, internet, all over. Maybe there's an activity or two related to politics in this town very, very soon. And so you might wonder, well, what about that? After all, Tim, you were a member of the city council. Many of the judges you just introduced were members of the county board, or they worked in the county building, or some of them even worked down in Springfield. What about politics with respect to the judiciary? Well, let me tell you about that. We respect those who work in all the offices, and you've heard them introduced, many of them today. We respect the work that they do. But when we take that oath, we put politics behind us. In fact, it's like opening the door to the Supreme Court of the United States. And over that door, you recall, it says justice under the law. And that's what we believe in that oath that we take. And we have the responsibility to put politics aside and to treat everyone equally who comes before us. We see the people who come before us and we listen to their stories and we can appreciate their plight. And as they describe their problems to us, we have solutions that we make available to them. For example, we have problem-solving courts that we make available to the people who come before us. And Jay talked about one of them, the mental health court. That's one of those that deals with people who are suffering from mental illnesses, and we help those people. We try to make certain that they stay on their psychotropic drugs, and we've discovered that when they do stay on those drugs, they don't commit any more crimes. And we have mental health courts. We have drug courts, too, that help to rehabilitate people who are addicted to drugs, and our courts do that on a day-by-day basis. We have domestic violence courts, for example, where in families tragedies have occurred. And in those courts, not only do we help the victims, but we help the perpetrators to stop their violence, and we try to reduce the cycle of violence that might otherwise occur. We have elder law court, where we try to help elders who are not in the best position to help themselves any longer. And we recognize in those courts that many of the people who know these elders best have abused them. Sometimes it's the family member dealing with them. And we, in elder law court, help them to find some solutions. We also help people who are trapped in the sex trade. Very tragic. We have programs called Wings, where women in need of special services can get those services. And we help them not only get away from the Johns and the pimps, but also we help them deal with the trauma that has caused them to be in court in the first place. We help them to get housing elsewhere and to get employment so that they don't have to return to the kind of troubled past that they're trying to get away from. We have foreclosure courts that help people going through foreclosures, and my colleagues are here who work in those courts. We provide analysis and coordination for them and their backgrounds. We help them with mediating services that are very important to them, and from time to time we can help them with the law. And in the process, at least 5,000 families are still in their homes that otherwise would have been lost to foreclosures, but for the foreclosure court that I'm describing to you. We also have veterans courts, and these courts help veterans who are returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, and many of them are suffering from PTSD, and they need help, and they need housing, and they need services, and they need compassion, and our problem-solving courts help them as well. We have a new set of courts that perhaps you've never heard of, and this court takes in consideration the work schedules of people who have to come before us, and this court convenes before the work schedule or after the work schedule is over for the day, and we try our best to be sensitive to people who are fighting to be there. We don't want them to lose their job just because they have to come to court. But not only do we have problem-solving courts, we have a court system that's on the move. We have a court system that is dedicated to justice and to the rule of law as our cornerstones. And we are not satisfied with the status quo. Our future is much brighter than you might imagine. For example, in the next week or so, I will be naming a new leader to head the Juvenile Temporary Detention Center, a center that has almost 300 young people vegetating there. I hope that the new leader will treat them humanely. Yeah. I didn't do that alone. We had a 15-member Blue Ribbon Committee that scoured the country looking for the best and the brightest, and 47 people who specialize in detention applied for that position. And the members of this committee went through down to, I remember, 15, and then down to 10, and then down to 5, and then down to 3, and now down to 1. I expect in the next week to talk to you a little bit more about that person, but I think you'll be very proud to have somebody like that working for you in this city. Secondly, this is something you might be interested in. I have submitted to the Illinois Supreme Court Cook County's formal request for approval for extended media coverage. And with that formal request, I submitted the Cook County protocol for cameras in the courtroom. Oh, yeah. Very soon, people will see we do not have any Judge Judys working in Cook County. And they will be able to see for themselves the capability and the compassion that arises from the decisions that our judges make. Another thing that you might be interested in, we will be pursuing a new bond court at 26 in California. It will be the PSA court that does not rely on financial ability dealing with monetary bails and bonds. Instead, it is a data-driven, scientific approach to problem solving in bond court. One that takes the latest science and applies it to the backgrounds of the people who come before the judge. And that system will be used to make certain that people who have been accused of nonviolent crimes and who don't have the kind of criminal history that would require them to be locked up pending their court proceedings. Those people will be released. And they will be released with the understanding that they will come back when they're supposed to come back, and they will not commit a crime while they're out, and certainly they will not commit violent crimes while they are on pretrial release. The system that I'm describing to you has been tried in other states very successfully. For example, it is used in every one of the courtrooms in Kentucky. It's been used in Arizona. It's been used in North Carolina. It's currently being used in California. And I think it will be a godsend for our courts here in Cook County. And we are going to be embracing a model court plan for the next 5 years. And it will be expected that every court in Cook County will equal or exceed the national standards dealing with integrity, expeditious resolution of cases in a timely manner, and also a vigorous commitment to justice. And we're going to scour the country once again to find the best experts that can be located so that we can concentrate on model courts in Cook County. We are well on the way, and I think with the additional help that will be coming in, I think as a result of that survey, we will be able to go forward. And we will be able to continue to provide the kind of courts in this county that you would be proud of. We work with our elected stakeholders, many of whom are here, and we're very proud of the work that they do. And we are certain that, as Robert F. Kennedy said a long time ago, that each one of us still has a role to play, and will play that role, that we too welcome the challenge and the opportunity to treat people fairly and equally in our courts, and we too pledge our best effort to make the rule of law in Cook County equal justice for all. I thank you very much for your attention.
Well, given our speaker and given the crowd, I say this with trepidation. Any question? You know, we got to make these rules about writing them out, but go ahead. You have a question, go right ahead.
Well, if there was any judge or lawyer who you would name as a role model, or someone who you always looked up to and sort of modeled your career after or would like to, who would that attorney or presence in the legal community, national or international, who would that person be?
I'd be happy to. Oh, yes. Her question was, if I could think of the name of a lawyer or someone with a legal background who I might like to emulate, who might be considered a kind of role model for me, she asked, who would that be? And it's an easy one for me. Back in the 60s, when I first started my matriculation at the University of Illinois, I had signed up for a medical career. And they told me, well, in order to get a BS degree in pre-med, you had to get a degree in zoology. So I said, fine, if that's what I have to do, I'll do that. But in the 60s, the people changing the rules and improving the quality of life and doing so in a dramatic way were not members of the medical profession, as much as I respect them. I ended up marrying a doctor, so I respect them. But it was the law that was changing the way things were done in this country. And one leading the charge was a guy by the name of Thurgood Marshall. He was my role model.
Thank you.
Well, Your Honor, we have two questions. I don't know if you can answer or you want to answer either one, but you know, this is City Club, you know. The camera there, I want you to rethink that stuff in the camera in the courtroom, by the way. I can tell you, awful lot of pressure. Mrs. George Johnson, where are you? Raise your hand. There she is, way in the back. Good. People, now you ready? This will take a while, but good printing. People often take the law into their own hands, while others will take a person to court if they want resolution. Why does society ridicule both groups, and as one of the greatest Chief Justice in the history of Cook County, that's the part I thought you'd really like, which road would you suggest someone take, and why? 25 words, no problem. There you go, Your Honor.
Well, I thank you very much for the compliment embedded in the question. And I would say this, obviously we never recommend that anybody take the law in their own hands. That is the reason why I specialized today in underlining that people can come to our court and be assured that they would be treated fairly. It is true that the courts don't prosecute, they don't bring the case, they consider the case and they deliberate on the case and they rule on the case. And you can imagine that perhaps some of the people who are the subject of that ruling are disappointed because usually one side might win and one side might lose. But I think to the extent that people can be heard, that they know that we've listened to them, that we have applied the law to the facts that they brought to the court, will assuage their trepidations and let them know that while you don't win every case in Cook County, you don't win every case in any court, at least the chance for judgment can take place. And rather than flying off the handle, as some might, trying to take the rule of law into their own hands, it's much better to let the people's court make the decision about whatever issue needs to be brought. We invite the world to come and bring their disputes to us, and we will resolve them fairly. And I hope you can always depend upon that. Thank you very much for your question.
We've got three quick questions and a long one. Let's do the quick ones first. Judith Reese, where are you, Judy? Former U of I trustee, correct? Yes. I know, I never forget the trustees. I also graduated, you never know. Retired attorney. Any progress on speeding up dockets?
Yes. Yes, and I appreciate that question. That's very important, and it gives me a chance to brag a little bit about what we are doing. You've seen something in the press about the deliberation process and how long it takes. Some of the questions about that could be addressed if we looked at the particular case that is the subject of a discussion. But even in criminal court, that's been the subject of some of these articles, 80% of the cases that are heard in criminal court already are at the national standard and exceeding the national standard. But let me just tell you quickly about one case that I know was the subject of a recent article. That particular case came to the Circuit Court of Cook County. There was a ruling made by the judge in that particular case. The case went up to the appellate court and then went up to the Supreme Court, came back to the appellate court, and then back to the Circuit Court of Cook County. And that same case, without it being mentioned by me today, is scheduled to be appealed again. So that's what happens. It's not so much that a case that quote unquote has been in the system a long time has been stagnant in the Circuit Court of Cook County. It's just that they have to go up and come back down if necessary. But you may have heard me mention one of the points. I want every courtroom and every case to be at or exceeding the national standard. And that's the 5-year plan that I talked about. And we're going to bring the resources to make sure that these cases can be heard and resolved expeditiously. And I thank you very, very much, alumni from the University of Illinois, for giving me a chance to comment. Appreciate it.
Thomas McElroy, what is your opinion on adapting 21st century wireless and paperless technology in the courts of Cook County?
Once again, very appropriate and timely. That's exactly what we want to do. We want to have a model court that would have everything that, let's say, for example, certainly the judge might need, computers on every courtroom bench, and we have that right now. We've already done that, computers on every courtroom bench in Cook County. But in addition to that, we want to make certain that the lawyers and the litigants who come into the system have access to what they need so that they can connect to, let's say, resources that they have back at their law offices, or maybe connect to research right there in open court so that they can cite a given case that they wish to bring to the court's attention. And we want to make it possible, and I've discussed this with some of the people here, to make it possible for lawyers who are in parts of the county and can't be everywhere at the same time to be able to communicate, let's say for a continuance, and they're stuck out in Shelley Sutcliffe-Dermer's district in the 2nd District, and they've got a case up at the same time in the Daly Center where we have 160 courtrooms. It ought to be possible for that lawyer to communicate with the court to get that continuance or state whatever it is that would encourage the court to move in one direction or another without that lawyer have to literally being in court at that particular time. So before we're done, we'll have model courts throughout Cook County, and I think it'll be great for the citizens and the litigants who come before us to see that.
Okay. Is that Ava or Anna George Smith?
It's Ava.
Ava. Okay. Good voice. Ava, can you speak a bit more on overhauling bond court?
Yes, I can. We took a trip to Washington, D.C., to Maryland. We invited people from Kentucky to come here. President Brett Winkle, who is here today, went, as did former Chief Justice Miller, who is here. Several of our colleagues, Clerk Brown's people are here, Sheriff Dart's people are here, State's Attorney Alvarez, Public Defender Cunningham. We went to see the best operating bond court systems, the ones that had received the most publicity as being able to solve the problem without relying on financial bonds. And in Washington, D.C., for example, they had a system there that Tim Murray talked to us about while we were in Washington. And they were able to show that they could trust this system that I'm describing, a system like the PSC court. They could trust that analysis because it was scientifically based, data-driven, and it didn't leave the court trying to make some kind of subjective decision based just upon instinct. It doesn't take away the judge's discretion. It's still going to be up to the judge to decide, but that judge will have the input of the public defender, usually, might be any defense attorney, the input from the state's attorney's office, input from the pretrial officer who will be present in open court. That pretrial officer will stay on the record what is the basis upon which his or her recommendation is going to be made to the court, and the judge will say on the record what is the basis of the judge's decision with respect to this system. And the system, as I say, has been tried and true. We heard from the experts, Ann Milgram, for example, who was formerly the Attorney General of New Jersey, is heading this with the Arnold Foundation. Dr. Maria Van Nostrum, who is the scientist for the federal court and the state courts around the country, will be working with us on this. And we will have the best pretrial system in the world right here. And it will be a system that will not cost the taxpayers the kind of money that the taxpayers are having to pay now. It will presume the innocence of the person who's been accused. And it will be a fair system to keep the public safe. I look forward to instituting it very, very soon.
We have the final question. You know, we always go on time because, like your court system, we go on time. Michael, of course, the last one. Redzalowski. Is that close enough? Good enough. All right. Chesh. I'll just read part of it. I think we got the gist of it. I represent tenants in eviction court. Most cases involve women with minor children. The disruption of having to move the family during school year is disruptive to the kids, and besides the terror of losing their home. Overwhelming problems, lack of sources, many of these become the...
My handwriting is terrible. I'm saying
You're,
most of the time it's not that the woman's doing anything wrong, but it's like the man that's living in the house left, they lose a job, they have no resources. It's just that they're stuck, they can't support their kids, and they don't have the
okay. In other words, the woman's not at fault, man's living in the house, can't pay the rent. You could solve it, Tim.
Maybe if I had your wallet, Paul. No, we recognize in instances like you described that compassion is needed. And Judge Ken Wright is here today, that those kinds of cases come up most often in the court that he is the presiding judge of. And they take matters into consideration that you described. But I don't want to try to pretend that we could ever have a system where people can stay rent-free. That wouldn't be fair. I would like to have enough housing in our community so that people who perhaps can't stay where they can't afford to stay any longer would have an alternative. I think that's probably the best way for us to approach it. Paul, let me just say, I thank you for giving me a chance to respond to questions. I thank you for the wonderful invitation to be here, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you so much.